welcome back or welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys the books that I think are must-reads for anybody that wants to get into reading or anybody that's trying to get back into reading, looking for Alaska. In my opinion, this is a classic. You can find it at pretty much any bookstore, anywhere you go. It's only 221 pages, and like the text is pretty decently big. Like in a way, instead of chapters, it'll say 127 days before. And then you flip towards the end 20 days after. That's part of the structure that I think really gets you like flipping through it because you want to know like what's gonna happen in between those like sets of days. A quick summary, I'm not gonna give any spoilers at all. Looking for Alaska, it's about a boy named Miles. His nickname is Pudge. He goes to Culver Creek Preparatory School. He's like a really smart kid. Pretty much everyone at this school is really smart. So the main characters in this book are Miles, the Colonel, Alaska, Takumi. The Colonel is Miles' roommate, and Alaska, she's very mysterious. She's very like, where did she come from? What are her thoughts? And Miles is like in love with Alaska the whole time, but Alaska has a boyfriend that goes to a different school. His name is Jake. Miles is obsessed with Alaska, but he won't fully like go for her just because he's shy. Like, Alaska will play with his feelings a little bit here and there. The Colonel and Alaska are obsessed with these pranks. They're known as being like the best at pulling pranks. And you kind of go with Miles through his first year at this school. The critically acclaimed debut novel by John Green, #1 best-selling author of Turtles All the Way Down. I have that book right here next to me too. First drink, first prank, first friend, first love, last words. Miles Halter is fascinated by famous last words and tired of his safe life at home. He leaves for boarding school to seek something called the Great Perhaps. Much awaits Miles at Culver Creek, including Alaska Young, who will pull Miles into her labyrinth and catapult him into the Great Perhaps. It's very like artsy, a modern classic. This stunning debut marked #1 best-selling author John Green's arrival as the groundbreaking new voice in contemporary fiction. There's also I think it's a TV show or a movie based on this now. This is like a must-read. You need to read this at least once.
So the reason Looking for Alaska gets banned so much is because of one scene that is routinely taken out of context and like read at school board meetings in like a can you believe our kids are allowed to read this kind of way. And like, look, ultimately there's no use debating this stuff because if it's not obvious to you that Looking for Alaska is not pornography, I kind of don't know what to say. But in this scene, these two young people have this like botched attempt at oral sex, and all the language in the scene is very clinical and cold and distant, and that is meant to be contrasted with the very next scene in the book where two characters just kiss, but it's much more fulfilling and connected because of the emotional connection that they have. So that's why those two scenes are in the book, which by the way are like 4 pages out of the novel because it's not a book about sex, it's a book about love and grief and forgiveness.
Keeping on the John Green path, we'll hop over to The Fault in Our Stars. I mean, if you were in middle school during the time of this era, you know, like this was the book to be reading. There's also a movie about it. I think the book's better. The book is always better than the movies. Despite the tumor shrinking medical miracle that has bought her a few years, Hazel has never been anything but terminal. Her final chapter inscribed upon diagnosis. But when a gorgeous plot twist named Augustus Waters suddenly appears at the Cancer Kids support group, Hazel's story is about to be completely rewritten. This book is a #1 international bestseller, #1 indie bestseller, #1 Wall Street Journal bestseller, USA bestseller. John Green's amazing. Like, his writing is just so good, but from what I remember, it's been a minute since I read this. I probably read this book about 3 or 4 times. Hazel is just a very melancholic person. She's kind of just waiting to die in this whole book.
You forgot to mention, Hazel has stage 4 lung cancer.
She is really into reading. She loves reading the same book over and over again. But Augustus just comes into her world and turns it upside down. They fall in love with each other, and Augustus is also struggling with his own form of cancer. His parents just seem awesome. They have another friend that was friends with Augustus. He has cancer in his eyes, and they help him go get revenge on his ex-girlfriend and stuff. And it's just a really, really good book. It's a very like coming of age type of story. So they're trying to work their way through just becoming adults, becoming people. Now let's move on to one of my favorites of all time, The Hunger Games. I have every single one of her books. I think this is a really good book series. It's super snappy and really quick to get into. Read this book at least twice, I think. The first book is around 374 pages. It gets you turning quick. I'm sure you probably know what The Hunger Games is from the movies. Like Katniss Everdeen, they live in District 12 in this place of Panem, which is like a future America kind of. District 12 is the coal mining district, and they have life the worst pretty much. The capital is what rules their whole nation, and every year they have to do the Hunger Games where they do a reaping for the capital to show like, hey, this is what happens when you rebel against the capital. And Katniss Everdeen's little sister gets picked for the reaping prim. Katniss freaks out and she volunteers. It's just, I mean, you have to know what the Hunger Games is. I was a huge Hunger Games girl. I had my 7th grade birthday was Hunger Games themed. And Catching Fire's really, really good and really fast paced too. Mockingjay is a little slower, but it's the end of the series, so it has to be slower, I think. All of these are heartbreaking. Then I also have The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. This is the prequel. I don't ever think that it'll be better than the first book. I think the first book will always be my favorite, but this was really good at looking at Coriolanus Snow. Her writing is still the same as it was in the first one. I think like the style, you can really tell it's Suzanne Collins, and the world building, yes, absolutely yes. A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I can't find my first book anywhere. These are the second two, but I know I have the first book somewhere. This is Good Girl, Bad Blood, the second book, and this is the third one, As Good as Dead. These books are insane. I have to say this from memory because I don't have the book with me to read the back of. Pip is a high school senior, and when she was a freshman in high school, there was this big situation where this guy and his girlfriend went missing. They end up assuming that the boyfriend, who is of like Indian American heritage, he ends up murdering his girlfriend at the time. That's like everything that's been believed. That's what their town has been haunted by. Well, for their graduating class, they have to do a capstone project. Her whole investigation is all about this situation. She always thinks it was a little sus, and really trying to uncover what actually happened, not just what was like put out there and assumed in kind of like a racist way. And then she meets Sal Singh, the younger brother of the older brother that supposedly murdered his girlfriend. People start to not like that Pip is looking around and sticking her nose in other people's business, and she has to fight through quite a bit. People get so mad that I don't want to spoil anything, but things start happening to her, okay? There are signs that start happening, and the second book says some secrets are too deadly to tell. It says Pip is not a detective anymore. With the help, oh, his name is Ravi. Not Sal. I think Sal was his brother. And the last one I'll share with you today, this is a BookTok favorite, The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. It's so good. It's like quite a bit of a page turner. Reclusive Hollywood icon Evelyn Hugo is finally ready to tell the truth about her glamorous and scandalous life. But when she chooses unknown magazine reporter Monique Grant to write her story, no one is more astounded than Monique herself. Determined to use this opportunity to jumpstart her career, Monique listens in fascination, from making her way to Los Angeles in the 1950s to leaving show business in the 80s, and of course the 7 husbands along the way. Evelyn unspools a tale of ruthless ambition, unexpected friendship, and a great forbidden love. But as Evelyn's story nears its conclusion, it becomes clear that her life intersects with Monique's own in tragic and irreversible ways. This is a mesmerizing journey through the splendor of old Hollywood into the sobering realities of the present day as 2 women struggle with what it means and what it costs to face the truth. I don't want to give any spoilers, but there are a couple of LGBT themes in this book. If you're really into that type of thing, it's so good. Evelyn comes from a really poor background. She had a terrible father, and she does anything she can to get away, and she makes it into Hollywood, and she becomes absolutely famous. I kind of imagine it as her being like Marilyn Monroe when I'm reading it. I don't know why. I know it's not supposed to be that. Oh, it's just so good. She ends up like getting with all these guys. At first, she sees them as a way out, okay? She's like really young in the beginning, marries this dude, she lies about her age. He gets her out, he takes her to Hollywood. Now she's away from her abusive father. It's really good. And Monique, you don't think that their stories connect at all. You're like, why the hell would she choose this random ass writer that's not known at all? They have a secret line connecting them, and it's just really good. Well, I think I've talked quite enough all about the books in this video. This is my first time ever making like a book girly video. So if you want to see more stuff like that, let me know in the comments down below, or hit the subscribe button. I'm trying to hit 1,500 subscribers, so if you want to help me out with that, hit the subscribe button down below. And I think that's it for this video, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!